So, hello everyone. Tonight we have a very special AMA. We're not just inviting someone outside of our community to come in and share their experience with the break-in. We actually have two uh, amazing career karma leaders. We have Sherelle and we have Danielle, and both of them started on career karma just like all of you on here. They joined our app. They were discovering if they wanted to do a career transition, and a lot of things happened that led them to be where they are today. And so I asked Sherelle and Danielle to come by because a few weeks ago there was a big tech conference called Grace Hopper Conference, I think in Orlando, right? And and they attended. And I'm not sure if it was your first tech conference or not, but I would love to kind of first kind of unpack your stories, but then dive in and get any advice on what it was like to attend a tech conference and share your experience and advice to others who are considering. So first, I want to say welcome, Sherelle and Danielle.
Hi. Thank you.
Hey, Sherelle. Hey, Danielle. So since there's two of you, um, I would say
Oh
maybe
yeah, it's not
maybe
white women, it's black
maybe
women.
you can introduce maybe each one of you can just take a few minutes to introduce yourself, just so our community knows when you joined, what you're up to now, and what made you go to the Grace Harper conference, and then we'll start unpacking bit by bit.
Okay, I'm Sherelle, and up until now, I started coding April 27th, actually April 28th. I started Career Karma April 27th, and since they were like, do a 21-day challenge, I did it. I took it seriously. I was like, oh, I really want to, because I always wanted to be a coder anyway. I always wanted to go into computer programming. I just didn't know how to do it. But when they said, hey, you could go for no money and everything like that, I took the 21-day challenge. I was like, okay, this is gonna change my life. And I did study, and I studied every night overnights, which I don't recommend, but it's what I had to do because I have a family. I have two children, so at home. So I had to do that. So yeah, I just took it seriously. Started doing the prep courses. I took like three prep courses in the interim, and I chose Flatiron School. And now I'm in Flatiron School. By the beginning of the year, I should have a job as a software engineer.
Awesome,
And
Sherelle.
yeah.
That's super exciting, and I think a lot of the people on the call who probably join around the same time as you, they've also studied with you. They kind of have matured as engineers alongside of you. And can you tell the folks about your study group that you started on Career Karma?
Okay, so like I come from a background where I was like in financial services, and also I was like a realtor. So I was like changing careers at the time, and I had like a big life change where I had got divorced and everything like that. So when I wanted to be a coder, but I didn't know how. So when I first started studying, I was like, it looked like a foreign language, and I couldn't pick it up. It was like the first day, and I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought. But like what happened was we were in like draft groups. And so like somebody from my draft group, his name is Chris, was like, oh, I'm finna study. So whoever wanna come in with me. So at first I'm like a loner, like I'm an introvert and everything like that. So at first I was like, no, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like I could do this by myself. But after a few hours, I was like, oh, okay, let me try this, let me try this as a last ditch effort. And when I went in there, it was another lady in there too. And what happened was, ever since I was studying with them, things were so much easier. It was like a light turned on. It was like so much better, like studying with a group. So I started a group called Great Mind Study. Me and Chris, we started a group called Great Mind Study Group, and to help people find study partners and study groups. Mm-hmm. So that was excellent, and that was really what I intended it for at the time.
Yeah, that's really awesome, Cheryl. So you were helping others, you were studying together. And my last question to you is, so can you share what kind of made you go to the Grace Hopper conference, and how did you hear about it?
Okay, so I heard about Grace Hopper, I think on Twitter. Somebody on Twitter was talking about, Nakima on Twitter was talking about it. And I was like, oh, it's going to be a lot of employers there, which I'm always like, I always see the end before the beginning. So I'm like looking at the end, go like, okay, it's employers there, I need to be there. Like, so it was over 1,000 employers there. So I was like, okay, how do I get there? So it was like they gave these, anybody who was underrepresented in tech, they gave scholarships for. So I figured out how to get a scholarship. And what happened was I got turned down the first time. I applied again, and they approved me the second time.
Love it. And we're going to unpack that more on the call. I want to pass the mic to Danielle, who also joined, I think, around the same time that Sherelle has. And Danielle is not only attending a boot camp, but she's also one of Career Karma's coaches. So some of you may have actually spoken to Danielle. And so Danielle, do you mind introducing yourself and kind of share how you joined Career Karma, what you're up to now, and how you found out about the conference?
Hey everybody, I'm Danielle. I initially joined Career Karma like Sherelle in April. I found out about it on Twitter. I had been watching it for like a couple of months. Like I kept seeing the 21-day challenge hashtag, and I'm like, what is that? Like, what are they doing over there? So I kept looking at it. I was a little skeptical, and I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and figure out what it's about. So I downloaded the app, and I'm like, oh snap, this helps you to learn how to code. And I always wanted to learn, but I just felt like it was too hard. So I jumped in, just like Sherelle, started taking a whole bunch of prep courses, and I did get narrowed down to one, which is Flatiron. I'm also attending. So that's how I got into Career Karma, and that's what I'm doing now. What else was the question?
Can you share, like, as a coach, I know recently we tried to run an experiment in August, and then we officially now have a program where squad leaders and people on Career Karma who are enrolled in boot camps now help others get through the 21-day challenge. So can you just share a little bit about kind of how you're doing both studying and working with us?
No problem. So for about, I would say, 4 hours a day, I get to talk to so many different people on the phone and share my experience, my story, and help them, whether they want to learn more about coding, learn how to navigate the app, just have someone to talk to sometimes, check in on them. Basically the things that the app do, but it's a live person. So I just call them my best friends. So I get to call my best friends every day and say, hey girl, how you doing? How's the app going? Did you, what are you doing coding wise? Or if they're like, you know what, I've had a bad day, I don't really feel like coding. I'm like, look, I had a bad day yesterday. I gave myself a break, then I got back into it. So I feel like, I motivate, I help, like they're my best friends. Y'all are my best friends.
Yeah.
So if I get to speak to you, this is me. I'm Danielle.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danielle. And you probably may not even realize the extent of how much, like, a minute or a few minutes of just speaking to another person, especially when you've been coding for a while and now you're getting stuck or you're having self-doubts, how much of a difference you can make in someone's life. So we appreciate you doing that. And can you share how you found out about the conference, and maybe even explain what is the Grace Hopper conference for those of you who might be hearing about it for the first time?
I found out about the conference on Twitter as well. I kept seeing the hashtag, and I was like, "What is Grace Hopper? What is this?" And I started looking at the hashtag, and then I got on the website, and I was like, "Oh wow, they have a conference, and it's in Florida. Like, how do I get there?" And so, just like Sherelle, I applied for the scholarship, but I got denied twice. And that's one thing I would tell you, like, don't give up. Just because somebody say no, keep going. Like, try again. I tried twice. And then they finally were like, okay, girl, we see you persistent. Come on, you can come. So Grace Hopper is a conference for women of all backgrounds, nationalities, all different types of positions in tech, all across the board, whether you are a product manager, whether you are a data scientist, any type of area you're in tech. And it's a gathering of women, and we empower each other. There's jobs there. There's, like Sherelle said, there's like over 1,000 jobs. We met with people from IBM, Google, Facebook. I met people that was all from India, all over the world, so many amazing women. There was actually about 24,000, I want to say, in attendance this year in Orlando.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think it's the biggest conference in the world, right? Mm-hmm. I know Career Karma, we've only been around, our app is now turning 1 in January, but I know there was a few members represented at the conference. And did you get to all meet each other in person?
Yeah, we actually did. Me and her met for like a split second, but I got to actually meet everybody, like at least say hey and hey girl, and it was cool. I was so glad to be able to meet
it though.
Yeah.
I miss it.
Oh, you did? Oh, I kept her to myself, so I really didn't share Sydney with nobody. That's my fault.
And one day we'll have a Career Karma conference too, so stay tuned. But until then, I think there's so many amazing conferences happening, and I think it's time for us to unpack a little bit about what did you get out of it, right? So what was your goal of kind of going in and attending, and then what did you leave with? Did you leave with advice, motivation, context? What are some of the value adds that you got out of attending Grace Hopper?
Okay. Well, for me, it was my first tech conference. I had never been to one at all. And so when I got the opportunity, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to learn all I can learn. And, I'm going to go to every meeting and I'm going to meet all these different people. And I didn't get to go to every meeting, but I got so much valuable information from the talks that I attended. Mm-hmm. I just learned how to network better. I learned about different jobs, not only the one that I'm currently pursuing, which is software engineering. Mm-hmm. I went on a couple of interviews, so I learned how to interview. I did my first whiteboarding interview. It was very intimidating.
Yeah.
But I definitely got a lot of value out of it. I've met people from all around the world that I still stay in contact with today, mm-hmm. and that have jobs in the area that I'm, wanting to get. So they, basically was like, I'll be your mentor. And I was pretty cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. Sherelle, what about you?
Well, I got out of it I had been to a tech conference before in my city because I had asked the organizer for a ticket, and I was like, I didn't have any money, so he just gave me one. So out of that tech conference, I got I wanted to focus more on the employers and more on the recruiting side, because I knew it was going to be 1,000 employers there, and my goal was to get a job. So, well, that wasn't my goal, but my goal was to find out what they want. So when it's time for me to get a job, I would know what they wanted. Yeah. So what I did was I attended the orientation talk, and that's the only talk I attended. And then I just spent the rest of the time going around to the booths of each and every employer, and seeing exactly what they're looking for and what actually their onboarding process was. And actually, I had a few take a look at my resume, and that was very informative. I felt I was only halfway through my boot camp, so I didn't feel confident enough to do any interviews until the last day. So I did 4 interviews then.
Okay.
And then I took a couple coding tests. And I got a lot out of it. I got recruiters that's when you graduate, let me know. I have people specifically in specific programs now that I'm targeting, because I know exactly what program that they have for entry-level developers. And I also have when I was on Twitter, that's how you do networking, just being out there and exposing yourself. When I was on Twitter and I was letting them know, I'm having trouble getting to the conference, Indeed stepped up and they paid for my hotel stay. It was over $900 for the whole week.
Mm-hmm.
Like they paid for my hotel stay for that. So, I think shouts out to them because, and then I met them at the breakfast. I talked to them, interacted with them, and it was other developers, other recruiters at my hotel
Mm-hmm.
that I got to talk to because I always want to know. So
Yeah.
I'm always asking questions. So I
Yeah.
talked to them and I was able to secure like breakfast with them. I'm still talking to it's a major company that I'm talking to, trying to figure out, they're trying to recruit me
Mm-hmm.
because of, just reaching out to people. Like when you go to conference, you don't just got to reach out at the conference. The people at your hotel, you have developers staying at your hotel probably. Reach out to them. And the person that I spoke with was like the main recruiter for a specific top level company. So that's not including Indeed, which I spoke to 2 recruiters there, and they pretty much said once I graduate. So
Yeah. And I'm about to open it up for everyone to ask you questions, but I want to kind of emphasize that first, you applied multiple times and got rejected for the scholarship, right? And I think it would have been just easy to just apply once or not apply at all and just kind of think to yourself, like, maybe this is not for me, or like, what are the chances that I get it? But you just did it. You just applied and then applied again. And then you even applied before you had like your hotels and everything figured out, right? And you just believed that you were going to figure it out. And the funny thing about our universe is that if you want something, people will, like, the universe around you will find a way to give it to you if you want it bad enough. And so I admire everyone's, like, both Sherelle's and Danielle's persistence. And I'm so happy that both of you are on the AMA with us. I think this is a perfect segue to just open it up for anyone on the call to ask questions about the conference, networking, preparation, anything that you want. Just introduce yourself and then ask your questions.
Hi, everyone. This is Stacy. I'm one of the co-squad leaders for the ATLians squad group. So I had a question. Congrats for getting to the Grace Hopper conference. I actually won the scholarship last year, but I decided to go to another conference, so I didn't go. But I regretted it after hearing from some people that went last year. So, but that's pretty cool that you guys got in there. My question was, so for the interviews, Sherelle, that you did, what kind of questions did they ask you, and what companies stood out to you at the conference? Like what companies were really for like entry-level software engineers?
So so the interview questions on that question, Microsoft, they gave an interview, but you didn't have to do any coding questions. So I was like, okay, that's the interview that I'm going to. So they did that. So and then the recruiter actually liked me, but he was like, submit your application, go ahead and submit your application or whatever. But when I talked to my my recruiter at my work person at Flatiron, they were like, I didn't think I was ready to take like the Microsoft coding exam. So I was like, I haven't submitted it yet. I'll submit it later. And then I did one with MeTech. It's a tech company in St. Louis, and MyTech, and I did actually, yeah. And then so when I went in there, they was asking questions about pretty much like computer science and just main like computer science questions. And so like I kind of felt that. But the lady, I saw her again at another conference I went to, and she was like, apply for a product manager. You could get that. I'll make sure you get that job. Like, and then until you're stronger in your coding. So I got options. So and then another one was I forgot the name of the company because I was just going with low ball companies just so I could practice. And then it was another one. Where else did I take? It was a software company that did coding tests, and then I did that, and I failed the coding test. But they said I could try again two more times. I haven't yet because I don't want to waste my 2 times. but yeah. So, but it's good practice. Like it's good
Yeah.
practice.
I
Like
mean,
then
most
what
people
was
wait until they graduate and then they're like, oh, I wish I prepared for these types of questions. But
right?
there's no downside to trying, right? Even if you just go to an
Yeah,
interview and they're like, solve this algorithm problem, and you're like, well, you haven't
yeah,
gone to that yet, so don't feel bad for not knowing the answer, but at least you
right,
know what to study for, right?
right. And then what was the other question you asked me?
What companies stood out to you? Was there some
Oh,
companies that were really for like
I
entry
love
level?
like Indeed's program because they have a program where you could do a university. It's like a university type program where you can kind of. I like companies that you can kind of feel around like what area you want because I kind of don't know like what area to develop I want to go in right now. And I
Mm-hmm.
will be a full stack software engineer, so I have options. But I want to kind of see like within the first 2 years. So Indeed has that kind of program for entry level, and Experian has that type of program for entry level. They have actually like a school, yeah, like a school type, and uh, it's actually a whole bunch of companies actually that has to have that kind of program. But like if you're ever at like, I always ask, okay, what's your onboarding procedure? And you can actually inbox somebody and ask that, like, let's say just say if you know a developer there, oh, what happened? Were you entry level or somebody from your school? Are you going to school right now?
I'm in a program with Treehouse, so I'm in an
Okay.
apprenticeship program.
So anything like with your like somebody from your alumni, that's a good people to people to reach out to your alumni because
Right.
they know how it is to come from a coding boot camp, and then ask them, okay, what happened when you got hired at that job?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like were you just thrown in there? Some people's like, I give you like a week of like 2 weeks of training, and then you just start coding. And
Okay.
I'm like, that's not strong enough for me.
All right. Okay.
So
All right. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Stacy. Let's see, anybody else? Any other questions?
I will kind of add to Sherelle's answer a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
With the interviews I went to, some of the questions that they asked are like the basics of programming. So, what is an object? What are arrays? What are functions? What are loops? How do you use a loop? How do you use a hash? So they asked a lot of things, like whatever programming language you're in. I would say, based upon the interviews, make sure you know the foundations. Make sure you know why, like the why behind what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you'll be okay. Like you may not know all the theories and everything that you may get at a 4-year degree, but you know how to code, but know why and be able to explain it and be able to write
Yeah, I didn't get those easy questions.
I have a question.
I asked computer science questions. Like,
I've got a question real quick, if you don't mind. Hi. Hey, I've seen on Twitter a couple of these different conferences that have come around, like the ones you guys went to. Is there anything we could do, or I could even help with in the future for any other announcements of conferences, things like that? I know sometimes people need a little bit of help, whether it be like GoFundMe or PayPal or something, to try to get them to some of these. Is there something we could maybe put together for future events to help Career Karma folks or anybody looking to try to go to some of those? Maybe we could try to coordinate some sort of I don't know, a group or something to
Yeah.
make more people aware of those, and also see what we can do about helping people get to them in the future.
Yeah.
I'd be willing
correct.
to help with that if I can. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a good idea would maybe to do a GitHub repo and list all the conferences and then list all maybe like the scholarships underneath. I know a lot of conferences do that. So then everybody can kind of add in. And then maybe, somebody can create a PayPal pool and then like as a collective we contribute, or something like that. That
Yeah.
might be.
I think that's great advice. Also, something that I've done in the past. If you volunteer for a conference, you can get in there free.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that for a few conferences I've been to. I've volunteered for a PHP conference last year, and I was able to get in free. And I asked them, could I be in a room where a particular speaker was to record the conference, and they let me do that. There was no problem. So definitely like reach out to organizers of the conferences and ask them, are they looking for volunteers? Like in Atlanta, there's a big conference coming up next year, and I'm waiting for them to come out with the volunteer list, because I know I'm not gonna be able to afford it. So, because they can be very expensive.
The full stack one with NG Atlanta and Node Atlanta, I got a scholarship for that one in February. So I am really looking forward to going to that one. It's a full week.
I know here in Ohio, there's two they have. I think one's in the summer, one's in the winter, that are really big, where there's tons of like the hiring managers and different people from different companies represented. Sounds a lot like what you guys just went to. So I would imagine most states that have any sort of decent tech representation probably have stuff like that. I just thought maybe it'd be kind of cool if we could collectively do something to where people aren't as much on their own trying to figure out how they might get to one, but how we could maybe, keep people posted on what they are, when they are, and then kind of rally to try to, if we have people interested in wanting to go, how we could get them.
Yeah. I love all of your ideas. I think the idea about the repo with different conferences and scholarships would be amazing. And I think it also, if you think about it, if you have that on your GitHub, it might not be a coding project, but if it has a lot of stars, right, and it's going to get a lot of stars on GitHub, that also is something you can even like mention when you do go to a conference. You'd be like, hey, like I not like brag about it, but I kind of slip by like, hey, like if you want to include your conference next year or whatever, so they start noticing you, and then they're reaching out to you to get on the list, right? So there's a lot of things there. Also, to what Tracy was saying, every conference, even though they have ticket prices, if you just reach out to organizers, they want to have people like you, like outside of tech there, right? Because the reason they make the prices high, like $500 or $1,000, is those are the prices for people who are already in tech, right? But they want to bring people from outside of tech so they can get into tech. And a lot of them offer scholarships, and a lot of them, like if you're willing to help out, they'll just comp you the ticket. So that's a great idea. I would say either reach out to the conference organizers on Twitter, email them, and keep doing it until you get a free ticket to your top conference. There's no reason why you won't be able to get it. Kelly, were you gonna weigh in too?
I actually have a little bit of a question for the women here, and that is, like, you hear in a lot of other industries about women having problems with the job and like getting certain areas because it is more man oriented in some areas. But like with coding, like, do you really see a lot of that? Because I mean, I'm pretty sure that it probably is some issues with that in some areas at least.
Can y'all hear me?
Hey, Stephanie, welcome as well. I know you were at Grasshopper too, so
yeah,
good to see you.
I was at the Grasshopper conference. I'm late, but I could take this one. With my no camera having self. But those who know why. So the issue with being a woman, so we're not just women, we're Black women in tech. And being a Black woman in tech is almost like the 1970s. Except for the 1970s, if you look at the different statistics, they actually had more than now. It's actually gotten worse over time due to institutionalized sexism, etc. So what happens is that by going to these conferences and by really networking and because what you really need is sponsorship. You need somebody that's going to pull you through all of that stuff to getting that job, to once you get that job to pulling you through to getting on better projects. And that's what you need. And sometimes you have to pick, am I going to be Black or am I going to be a woman? And when it comes to the Grace Hopper Conference, sometimes you have to choose to be a woman. And you have a big conference like that. Like Afrotech is coming up in November, and it's not getting the same type of shine as a Grace Hopper conference is getting. But that's just how the world works. So it's just a different type of navigation. So I think it was Craig's point about having a repository of scholarships and resources. So there's Diversified Tech, and there's a woman, I think her name is Vinny. I can't remember her last name. She sends out newsletters and things like that about. There we go. There you go. Sherelle's on it. Sherelle's on it. So Sherelle's on it on everything. Anyways, and and so that's kind of how that works. And that's a pretty good one. And you can find that out. Plus, just following people on Twitter, and people will personally sponsor people to go to conferences as well. But being a woman in tech is getting into tech is a strong thing, and staying in most, like they also have the statistics on most women leave after 10 years. So when I met some women that were there that had been in tech for 25 years, I'm talking about still engineers, where they haven't pushed you into a non-technical role, which is a thing they will try to do. And I'm like, okay, so you made it to the 25-year mark. And they're like, yeah, they have war stories. So it's a grind. And it as if getting there isn't hard enough. I think it was one of these AMAs where somebody said that tech doesn't matter what you look like, and that is not true.
Let me also add, Stephanie, thanks a lot for sharing. Let me also add that that's why Career Karma exists. So it makes it just a little bit easier. And now that we have so many people on this call, and all of you are now at different stages, we can make sure that we all work together, we support each other, we brainstorm ideas. So we do change statistics in this industry. And ultimately, when Sherelle is an engineer, right, at Indeed or whatever company she decides to pick, that's a win. That's one win for us, because now she'll be able to help someone else behind her get there. And the more people we get into tech, we'll start changing the way tech people even look like. And so I just want you to also, everyone, to realize that everyone's been on this journey for about a year, maybe a little less, and we're just getting started, and we're here to support each one of you. I think everyone had a lot of good ideas on creating the GitHub repo, scholarships. I think one easy thing every single person can do is just support each other on Twitter. So if Sherelle is doing a GoFundMe, or there's a few different websites that help you raise funding, if people can just retweet each other's posts, then that post gets more visibility, and Sherelle or someone else in the community is more likely to reach someone with their story, so they accomplish their goals. So we could also start like a group where you can just retweet each other's GoFundMes or whatnot to get more exposure.
I have to agree. And you know what? Okay, you go ahead, Danielle.
Oh, I was just saying, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, because I've been to like, okay, I went to Strange Loop right before that, Grace Hopper, and I just asked the organizer for a ticket. I was like, okay, I just emailed him. I'm a student. Help me. I can't afford it. He just gave it to me. It was like it was over $500 ticket. Then I went to Grace Hopper. I went to another conference called Dev Up, and I volunteered there. But I mean, I've made so many connections just from conferences. It's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have like a lot of people's LinkedIn inboxes and everything just from conferences. And I'm scheduled to go to RubyConf in November, and I'm scheduled to go to AWS reInvent in December. And that's AWS reInvent is fully paid for. So, and that's from a tech conference scholarship from Project Alloy. So, I'm grateful for that, you know, and it's going to be in Las Vegas for a week. So, I'm happy.
Nice. Can you? I don't think we touched upon remote work. Have you met any companies that do have remote jobs, or when you speak to companies, are you open to relocating to where they are, or how should people think about that?
I'm open to relocating, but they said if with the conferences in my city, like they're like, if you don't want to relocate, we have it. You know, you can get a job. You know, our jobs are even in contracting companies. They have contracts with companies in your city. But if you want to relocate, sky's the limit, because if you're going to any kind of coding boot camp, you're probably going to be a full stack engineer, and everybody's looking for one. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to speak on that too. So when I talked to Target at Grace Hopper, and Target is in Minneapolis, and I met some people from Minneapolis from back in my my previous life, and for the most part, and a lot of people, they want you to be on site because that, you know, so you build that camaraderie, especially early on, and you kind of want that as well. But when I talked to Target was like, so do you mind being remote in Los Angeles? And I was like, what? Like, they were like, you know, or maybe like, you know, something like still in California. And I'm like, from Minneapolis, you know? So they were doing a lot of like, what do you want type things. And that was shocking. So just to answer the remote thing, well, because what happens with remote employees, you don't have to pay for AC, a desk, you know, I mean, well, they'll give you some money to get a desk, but they don't have to pay for your AC, for you to sit around the water cooler. And as you know, since we are doing the coding boot camps, I guarantee you work more in your coding boot camp than you have ever worked at your job in 8 hours. Like, if you work 8 hours and you say you worked 8 hours on a project, you really worked 8 hours, as opposed to work where you were just there for 8 hours.
Yeah, I can attest to that. When I was doing a coding bootcamp back in 2015, it was probably one of the hardest things that I've done up to that point, because it was full time. It was only 12 weeks. Then even Y Combinator was a lot easier than doing a bootcamp. And when you do get into your job, people think you're coding 8 hours a day. The way companies are set up, you're probably like 3 hours or 4 hours in meetings with designers, product managers. You go to lunch, and then you spend maybe 3 to 4 hours actually like thinking about problems that you want to code, and then you write your code once you figured out like what the solution is, right? So in the job, your role is not just to sit there like typing all the time. You need time to think, investigate, and usually like your company gives you a task to do, like solve a problem beginning of the week, and you have a week to figure out the solution to it, and there's no one breathing down your neck like saying work harder. They just want to give you time to go and like solve a problem, find a solution either online, speak to coworkers, or just get it done. But it's cool that there's a few companies that have remote positions. Sherelle, you mentioned that you encountered a few that had remote positions too. I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it was a lot of companies out there looking for remote workers, but I'm not looking for remote work, but because I want to learn for the first couple of years with someone. But yeah, it was a whole bunch of companies looking out there for remote workers, even for entry level. So yeah.
Cool.
And I know someone on Twitter actually who's doing remote work now, who came out of a boot camp. So his name's Christopher, but he's working remote work and just right out of a boot camp. So whatever you want, like whatever job you want, as long as you do the work, you're gonna be able to find it. You're gonna have to learn the stuff first.
Some companies too, I've heard, when you first interview, I mean, you don't want to run your chance of getting a job, but you can kind of hint at remote work for later. Maybe you can work your way into it where you start doing 1 day a week at home, 2, 3, etc. Some companies just don't like to offer it up front, or if you're a brand new employee, they want to see you at work first before they do that. But you can always kind of try to pre-negotiate that into your job when you get it too. I've heard.
Some companies are all virtual, where they only work online. So you just have to figure out, like, you just have to find those type of companies. There's a lot of companies out there, so it's a lot of selection. Like, you could be selective, you could kind of be selective. So I am.
Let's see. We got about 15 minutes left. I know there's a bunch of other people having questions. Feel free to jump in. Anyone?
Did Sherelle talk about all the swag that she got?
No,
from the
she
conferences?
didn't. She was hiding from us.
I had a lot of swag because I went to a lot of booths. I was talking to a lot of people, and then I had like a whole bunch of stuff.
A suitcase worth of stuff every day. Every day.
Away. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was bad. I was just trying to see how much I could get, honestly.
Oh, man.
Stephanie, let me ask you this: what was it like meeting CK folks at the conference? I think I saw one of your pictures online.
Oh, yeah. So it was cool. The thing is that, what's interesting about meeting up in person for the first time. So first of all, with the exception of now, we've already seen each other's faces. And I'm the exception of now. That's because I look crazy, So I'm like, in case you post this, I don't want this to be on here like this. But the thing is that, like, we got to know each other already. So meeting up in person was just like, oh, it wasn't like, are you Sherelle? It wasn't like that. Like, it was just like, oh, hey girl, what's up? Like, so I think Danielle saw me by I was trying to go get something to eat. I think Danielle saw me by the food court, and she was like, hey girl, so I'm going to the thing. Let's go. And I'm like, okay, forget my bagel. So so that's
Take the bagel away.
yeah. So she just saw me, gave me a hug, and we just walked. And so that's just kind of how that was. But the thing is that because we do so much interacting, and as opposed to like people where you see them in person and you have no idea what they're going through personally. Mm-hmm. But here it's like we find out more about each other personally already than we do. I know I haven't been doing my Code Famiglia setup recently. really since the conference, which is the irony. But for the most part, we talked to each other then. So going to meet up in person, it was just like it was real seamless. And then meeting up with Gina, I was like, all right, so you go first because I don't know what she looked like. And but even still, it was like, okay, cool. Like what's up? Like it didn't matter. Like it was a real easy type of thing because we didn't have to do that whole get to know each other thing. We already knew each other.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I know sometimes, especially if you're going to a tech conference for the first time, you might feel a little either anxious or nervous because you don't know what to expect. Did you all kind of feel like that a little bit, and did it help knowing other people who are going with you?
Okay, let me just go first before they go. Let me just go first. No, just because it's my second time going. That's why I want to go first before they go. Mm-hmm. So, it was my second time going. My first time going, I just went and I just heard about this thing. And I didn't know that it was the biggest women in tech conference in the world. I didn't know that. I just heard about this thing and everyone was going on Twitter. And so I needed some money and I asked people and they gave it to me. And when I went by myself, and the lonely feeling was like just overwhelming. But at the same time, it opens up your possibilities to be like, oh my God, like all of the companies are here. Like mm-hmm. this is crazy. So definitely going and knowing some people is better. But I had a great time, once I finally got over the loneliness thing.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that, Stephanie.
Yeah.
For me, it was definitely better because like the first couple of days, I tried to get people like to come to stay in my room for free because I got it for free, and nobody would. Like they kept bailing on me, so it was just like I was just like off alone trying to do this by myself. But like when I met up with like Stephanie and Danielle and it was just funner. Like it's just funner. Like you get to share ideas. Like some of them we all did different things. So some of like Danielle, she went to all of the talks, and I just like pretty much stayed at the career fair. And Stephanie, she did a little bit of both. So like it was just like funner. Like they had like this dinner that I didn't think we could get into, but we got into. Like I was late for it and I didn't think I could get into it. But I
was trying to tell her to come on and she's like, I don't know if I can come. And I'm like, come on.
Stephanie told me about some of these after hours events. You get to you share information. Like people are grouped up when they come to these things, honestly. And so like coming, you like limited information. You only know what you know. But like if you come with a group, you got like extra people going extra places, and you just know a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Danielle, what about you?
Initially, I felt very overwhelmed because it was my first time being to Orlando, my first time attending a conference. I really didn't know what to expect. I knew like everybody was going to be there and I was going to meet them eventually, but I was just really nervous. But I made a stop before I went to Orlando and I started like hashtagging, like I clicked the hashtag for GHC19 and I seen somebody say, oh, I'm in Fort Lauderdale Airport. And so I clicked it and I looked on my phone, I looked up and the girl that had tweeted it was like right in front of me. And I was like, oh, you're going to Grace Hopper? She was like, yeah. And we met, sat on a plane beside each other and we talk every day now. Like it was overwhelming, but you meet people, that you never thought you would. And after I met everybody else from CK, it was like, oh, the family's here. So it was fun.
Awesome. And anybody, what were some highlights in terms of the speakers that you heard? Were there any topics that you were just like kind of blown away or you were very like inspired by?
Morgan, I think her name is Morgan. I don't know how to say her last name, but she's the creator of Blavity and Afrotech, which is that conference that I was talking about next month. She really spoke about diversity and how she shared her story, how she got started.
There
And,
you go.
you know, that was just incredible, like how she went to school and changed like majors so many times and ended up, you know, starting her own company. And it was just cool to see someone who looks like me that, you know, she didn't have it all figured out in the beginning, but the end result is that she didn't give up. And so that was really cool to see.
That's awesome. And we got a guy, his name is Squam. He did one of the AMAs a few months ago. He did a boot camp in Atlanta, but I think he works as a software engineer at Blavity. So if anyone's in Atlanta looking out, hit up Quam, either on Twitter or through the CK app. And
I think I have. I've spoken.
What was that, Caleb?
So I think I have spoken to him, or at least on CK anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm in Atlanta as well.
Yeah.
I think did he go in person? I think he did.
He did in person on campus in Atlanta.
Yeah, because I'm doing online. That's kind of one of the biggest struggles for me. It's also kind of why I went with Flatiron as well, because at least I could go to the campus and I could go to the events they do, which was an important factor for me. So there's actually one coming up this next Wednesday, so I'm gonna go to that. But yeah, I'll definitely like keep that in mind.
Yeah, and keep I would encourage everyone on the call to just leverage Twitter, like leverage your alumni base, like leverage what meetups, whatever you can think of, just to find people and just ask, reach out to them, connect. The worst that can happen is they don't respond, and the best that happens is they actually like you and they're like, oh, I see myself in Caleb or in Sherelle when I was breaking in, and I want to look out for you and help you get in. So there's a lot of people out there who are going to look out for you. Sherelle, so the question that I asked Danielle and Stephanie, what was the highlight for you in terms of speakers or anything that motivated you?
Just like the recruiters and the developers that I met at Grace Hopper, that was motivation right there, because they were like open and honest, and they were like friendly, and they were answering my questions, and they helped me a lot, like to see exactly what they're looking for in a candidate. And also, you know, like that way I could figure out what I have to do to be in that position. So, I mean, that was excellent. And just for, you know, going off what you said, like when you said about the meetups, I went to a meetup for like my first meetup. You know, it was about a month before Grace Hopper, and I met so many people. I met a data scientist there, and she actually gave me an invite for a Netflix dinner for senior developers. Exclusive Netflix dinner that they have in our city, and I was able to attend because I just went to a meetup and met somebody. I was also offered a job from a recruiter for Washington University, which for a junior developer job, which I wasn't qualified for, but I was offered to it from a meetup. Like meetups are invaluable.
Absolutely. Stephanie, what about you? What stood out to you?
Yeah, so I went to this because I have to. You said talks, so I have to keep it specific. And I went to a talk that was talking. It was talking about. I went to a talk about high impact in your career, something like that. I can't remember the exact name of it, but what she did was go through how to, once you get the job, but and you get the position, but how do you get high impact projects so that you're able to move forward. And so I thought that one was really good. I connected with her on Twitter because she was swamped afterwards, but I connected with her on Twitter afterwards, and I'm still connected with her now, but she also showed what happened from that one project that she did, which wasn't a whole bunch of code. That one project that she did that made it all the way up to the CTO. Then she worked at Reddit, by the way. So I was like, who's scary? But she works at Reddit, and but to say, they got a large, a lot. You have to maintain all of that. And she was showing that change that she made, and she was going through the steps of how she had to not just make the change, but share out the fact that she made the change in a digestible way, and then share it with the right people, and then that's inside the company and outside. And she tweeted about it as well, and as a personal, like, this is something I did, and then it ended up becoming then that ended up leading to her, fast forward, it's an hour something talk, so it ended up leading to her becoming a manager over this thing that she found that was an issue. And she showed a graph of her salary increase that happened from just doing this one thing. And this wasn't something that was in her job description. This was something that I think they give them 10% of their time to do other stuff. That's where she started it. But of course she said it took, after hours and stuff like that to make it happen. But I thought that the idea, because I, just thinking about getting on the job and getting there and just being like, okay, can I just keep up? And it's like, okay, yeah, you can just keep up, but can you make an impact on the actual business and keeping the business in mind? And I think that's something that's really important. As an engineer, like, you're not just there to be a cog in the wheel. You're there to solve problems.
Yeah, and contribute ideas. And a lot of companies, they want people to like be passionate about what they do and solve ideas that the CEO or the founders didn't know even like could be possible. And you're like, oh, on the side, I've been hacking around. And I'm not sure how many people know this, but that's actually how Google was able to get Gmail. It just came out of engineers at Google just hacking around during their free time, and they built Gmail, they built Google Maps, and people just think that like Google just comes up with these ideas, but it's actually the engineers, the product managers, designers who work at these companies who actually build it. I know I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we're going to be wrapping up. One of the things I want to emphasize is that a lot of companies have apprenticeships. They're kind of like internships, but for adults who are transitioning into tech. And so that's another thing that you can ask your recruiters when you go to these conferences. And one of the things that Sherelle mentioned was about like how friendly recruiters are. I think people just assume that it's kind of like me against the recruiter. It's like me against them. When in reality, if you get hired at the company, it's actually going to make the recruiter look good. It's on you now to tell them why you would be a good fit and connect the dots and explain to them like why you're perfect for the role. And that's something that you also get to practice and refine by going to conferences, because I'm sure the way Sherelle explained like that she's doing Flatiron and what her goals are got better and better and better every time she had to introduce herself, right? And that's the only way to get better. So I just want to say again, thank you so much to Sherelle, Stephanie, Danielle for joining us tonight. What are your Twitters in case people want to follow you on Twitter?
Brown Tech Bay. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. And I would say we had some great ideas on this call in terms of creating the GitHub, creating groups for retweeting GoFundMe campaigns. Let's make sure that we start building on those items, like those action items. And if anyone else has any ideas, feel free to contribute and just keep going. And let's break in, everyone. Let's give our guests a round of applause. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and